Just to confirm to the public and those watching us on YouTube, we have a short adjournment so that people can go to the loo. Then we will resume the meeting. I have to wait till they come back in any event. Otherwise, if I start, they can't take part. They can't vote. I think everyone's present now. So I now resume, and we're now in public. So, Des.
Wouldn't it be funny if I said I've got nothing further to say? But I have, of course. So I'm just trying to keep everyone on their toes, Chair. Okay, so back in part one. Thank you for everyone for your engagement in part two, the legal costs report, etc., and colleagues too. To just pick up where I left off, then I wanted just to bring into context where we are since the last committee meeting, which took place on the 11th of December, because I am aware that the applicant moved residence into number 49 2 days later after the meeting, despite the deferral of the application until tonight. It's my understanding that the planning enforcement team were made aware of that decision and are awaiting the outcome of the application. With the operating of the premises since the 13th of December, I'm aware that there have been numerous parking related issues in Horsfield Road stemming from the lack of off-street parking provision. And this includes straddled parking on the pavements from staff vehicles and the pool car, which is permanently parked on the road. And these are causing obstructions, blocking footpaths and difficulties to residents accessing driveways, along with parking charges being issued due to the failure to adhere to active parking restrictions. Unfortunately, there was an incident logged to Kent Police because of behaviour of a staff member working at the premises who was that was concerning the safe exiting of a neighbouring driveway during the icy conditions. And I just wanted to add that these are not totally unexpected, given the failure to provide the necessary off-street parking to meet the needs of this institution. And therefore, this reinforces the second reason for refusal of this application on the basic and poor design, coupled with the parking management plan that is unrealistic, full of assumption, and still, to me, is unworkable. Prior to the committee, I identified on the applicant's website St Leonard's Place under the service pages that they offer a combination of day respite and domiciliary care, excuse me. The provision of a daycare centre apparently includes weekdays, evenings and weekends, which is in addition to the accommodation and care already being provided for the permanent living in service users. It's clearly evident that this daycare provision is already being provided and being accessed by service users. And this has not been previously raised by either the applicant nor the planning officers, and the addition of such a service as advertised results in yet further intensification of the house. Therefore, the parking inadequacies currently experienced are being exacerbated through this additional care service. I don't want to go over everything that we've talked about in part two, but I just want to say this about the KCC Highways issue, because it was spoken of at the last meeting and this one. And whilst KCC Highways made a number of contradictions because they opposed the parking plan at first, then they went with the parking plan within their consultation response, and I raised all these previously, they would not have been aware of these additional services offered. Therefore, the increased intensity of the use in line with C2 classification and not the designing developments to be in accordance to the parking standards results in poor planning and design. And policy SQ8 of the managing development and environmental DPD requires demonstration that any necessary transport infrastructure is in place or is certain to be provided. And I don't think this has been demonstrated as deliverable. As I say, I'm not going to go over stuff I've already covered in part two, but as I will just touch on this briefly. As raised by a resident previously, the side elevation drawings failed to detail the windows present on the premises. And I understand that yet a further revision to both the existing and proposed side elevations was submitted to rectify this issue. We talked about the amendment rules and laws and contrary to TNBC policy at the last meeting. Again, this shows a continued failure to be able to actually assess the application in terms of implications. Yeah, please.
Yes, so we asked the applicant to include the windows on the side elevation. Obviously, that's a correction to the plans, an amendment per se. And again, it wouldn't change our position in that particular.
I'm really grateful for that clarity, and I just wondered, because of that that side elevation, and I'm talking about the environmental health issues now. Would the environmental health team not have to come back and assess, given the fact that there are now 4 windows in play that weren't the last time? Because at their initial on their initial response, they say quite clearly in the report at first glance. So we don't even know if they've been to the premises, and with this additional information, would they have been and assessed?
Like I've said before, you know, a Class C2 use is usually found in a residential area. I think the environmental health, we're looking at the particular use, not necessarily the layout or anything else in respect to the proposal in front of you. As I said, those windows are existing, and I don't think it would have changed their recommendation.
Okay, with greatest respect, Ian, because you're a top man, when you say you don't think it would change their recommendation, obviously it might, but there you go. I'm going to take your word as you're the expert. But you know, when you say I don't think, you're not an environmental health officer, so I take it that it could possibly change their recommendation had they been back to inspect it, which we don't know. And lastly, for me, Chair, before I hand over to colleagues again, we talked briefly about the property. The officer report was prepared on the viewpoint of the property being comparative to a standard C3 dwelling house rather than the C2 use that it had been applied for. In my opinion, the addition of further care services as advertised and being provided would be far in excess of the operation of a C3B lawful development certificate. And so in conclusion, the application for a C2 would be a detriment to neighbouring amenities through an increased intensification of residential property, coupled with the inability to provide sufficient off-street parking. I'm happy to hand over here, and I'll take your guidance on the next part, Chair, as to whether you want me to propose my last proposal, if you like, to vote against. But I'd like to hear what colleagues have to say, if I may, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The PAS inspection report with relation to this, in paragraph 5.22, the inspection team heard a couple of remarks from planning officers here along the lines of, we pay little attention to residents and members of the public are seen as an irritant. Paragraph 5.34 states that the inspection team feels that there's been really a number of lost opportunities when it comes to ways that the local community could have been engaged with, local community groups that perhaps could have been empowered to influence the decision or the process in a more positive way. So I'd just like to ask officers if they have any comments on those remarks, and also if they feel that there's a culture problem within the planning department here with regards to community engagement more widely. Thank you.
I mean, in terms of community engagement, we statutorily, our statement of community involvement is our legal process, what we say we do, and that's set out legally in our statement of community involvement. So that's our formal process. I think the PAS review came up, and there was also, you know, elements in terms of, you know, some mistrust elements, and I think, you know, that looked at a broad spectrum, and obviously as part of that, members of HMP and Cabinet sort of approved an action plan to go forward in terms of seeking to address some of those issues. And obviously, I'm not going to go into detail, you know, what those action plan details are. And we're currently working up those proposals with a report due to come back to HMP in March to look at how we're progressing. So I think in terms of, you know, there are proposals we're looking at. They are clearly already set out in the action plan, and we've set those out. So we are looking to address some of those matters. And, you know, I always look at the PAS review as a sort of an opportunity to improve the service, because I think we're on the curve and improving service. I'd never go with there. And obviously the PAS has been brought in to have an overview and an outlook in, and I think that's a positive thing to go forward. And with the action plan, I would see that we're going to be continuing that improvement curve.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased that you've got an action plan. Obviously, it's disappointing to see that such remarks may have been made. But you know, I do sometimes think there is definitely a tension with regard to the way public input is perceived, and it's good to see that that's been acknowledged and there is some sort of positive engagement around that, because obviously, ultimately, we're all here to serve the residents and put their interests first. And I think sometimes people don't necessarily see that reflected back at them in the way the process works. Thank you.
What else? Paul Hickmott.
Yes, I think this issue about, especially in planning, the officers the way they operate was brought up with a peer pressure group or whatever it was. I'd just like to say, well, I don't always agree with what the officers are saying, and I'm happy to tell them that, but I do respect the way they carry themselves and give us the information and the legislation as it is, which might appear from our end of the telescope they're being awkward or obtuse or whatever, but I don't subscribe to that. I think they do their very best, and that's all they can do. I've looked at this report, and it says the parking shortfall cannot be considered a valid reason for high objection. So if we're going to raise a higher objection, and the KCC don't, and the report says that we should pass it, and the officers recommend it, and there's going to be costs. And we're always being told that this council hasn't got a lot of money. We should be very careful what we're doing. So I really do feel that we should pass this. Sorry? Yep.
Bears still have severe reservations about the parking. We saw photographs in the closed session where cars were parking on the pavement on either side. If they parked on the road, you couldn't have got anything through bar a motorcycle they'd parked in the method in which they had parked. There's parking reservations are there, and we talked about that. That was for commuter parking, a 1 hour delay between, if my memory serves me correctly, 11 and 12 on one side and a slightly different time scale on the other side, so that people could switch during those sides. But I think we've got a severe parking problem there. I'm wondering if we shouldn't be looking at a thing which we've put in for a situation which no longer exists, and put in as part of this application changes of parking, which might make a better parking arrangement for the large number of vehicles that are associated with this one flat, which is completely it's not a 3-car family or anything like that. We're talking about a lot of spare cars that are associated with this, and that is not what's in the parking plan, but what is de facto happening on the ground today.
We do about it.
I'm suggesting that we look at that now and see if there is anything we can do in the parking plans and what have you. And if there's any expense involved, I wonder if it wouldn't be reasonable to pass it on.
I'm really just going to sort of reiterate the fact that for a C2 use for this size, the guidance is for 3 car parking spaces. If they provided those 3 spaces on the site, we wouldn't be having this discussions. And I think the thing is you have to look at it from that point of view, and the fact that it's only an overspill of one particular car that we're looking at. Now, obviously, we have had a look at those photos. We don't know who owns those cars in particular. It could be people from the care home. It could be other residents visiting. That's what you need to consider in this thing, is whether or not that harm from the overspill of one shortfall, should I say, of one parking space on the site is sufficient to cause, public highway safety issues. And, from the officer's opinion, that shortfall of one space isn't sufficient to reach that threshold.
Any more for any more? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, is it based on what Councillor Kears has told us in private and also what we've seen? I still think there are significant issues around the site that need to be discussed, and I don't think my concerns about this have been alleviated based on what I've heard tonight. Thank you.
Has been proposed and seconded that we approve the application. So I think I should put that to the vote. Just to say, of course, that that's defeated and it's then refused or deferred, that the matter will probably go to full council.
Members are now voting on the approval of this application based on the conditions set out in the supplementary report. So when I call your name, please can you indicate whether you are for, against, or abstain from this proposal to approve, which is proposed by Councillor Hickmott and seconded by Councillor Oakley. Councillor Thornewell,
For.
Councillor Bell,
Abstain.
Councillor Benderson,
For. For.
Councillor Bishop,
For.
Councillor Cannon,
Against.
Councillor Dalton,
Against.
Councillor Davis,
Against.
Councillor Hammond,
Against.
Councillor Hickmott,
Or.
Councillor Kears,
Against.
Councillor McDermott,
Against.
Councillor Oakley,
For.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
We have 5 members voted in favour, 7 members voted against, 1 member abstained. So it's lost.
Members need to then put forward that motion was lost, so we need another proposer to set the next motion. Is there going to be a motion to stick with the ground and refuse the application as previously cited? That needs to be that, or that could be an option, but something needs to be put forward because we need to progress the application.
Well, what's your advice?
The advice, it's for members to make a decision. Is there a proposer that's going to put grounds forward? And
Yeah,
it could be
okay.
a grounds to refuse as previously
Yeah, that's
mentioned.
exactly okay. Sorry, and I misunderstood what you first said there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm going to. Do you want me to read it out again, or just as per the last time? Sally, have you got the last?
It seems to me be sensible, and I don't agree with it. You should put forward the grounds that this committee recommended before.
No problem. So reasons for refusing the
You don't
application.
have to read it out again.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to vote on, and we have a recorded vote, please.
I will second that. If
Thank you. Yes. Yeah,
Sorry, I'll just read the second part of 15.24, or rather, obviously we know why we're back today at planning committee, which was to consider the cost report. So the second part of the cost report says, of the 15.24 says, if the director of central services and monitoring officers report indicates that there is likely to be a risk of significant costs being awarded against the council as any appeal, or potential liability to pay compensation, the committee may not determine the application in a manner contrary to the advice set out in the report. And a resolution by the committee to make such a determination will be a recommendation only, and the application shall stand adjourned to the council for determination. Obviously, we've had everyone, I mean, we've had it voted against rather the application, so it would stand adjourned till to council for determination as per the report. which clarifies, obviously the significant costs which the threshold council has agreed, rather planning have informed us of. So yeah, so the matter will be determined by full council instead. So there's no decision tonight to refuse application. The recommendation only. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, still-
Yeah, it's so we still need to take a vote. Apologies. Yeah.
So I'm now going to take the vote and the result. If what you've proposed is carried, then that turns into a recommendation to a future council meeting. Right, so we take the vote.
Sorry, Chair, can I hear the recommendation?
Should I read it?
Uh,
Do I need to read it again? But yeah, for it's on the minutes. Yeah, I can read it out. Also,
Feel the correct thing to do for Sally to read it out as you instructed, because there are YouTube people watching at the moment who won't understand it.
and so members are now voting to refuse this application based on the two refusal grounds proposed by Councillor Kies and now seconded by Councillor McDermott, and they were the same as put forward last time. I just read them out. So the first one is is as a result of the increased comings and goings, additional parking of vehicles, staff movements, disruption and activity would result in an unacceptable intensification of the site, out of keeping with the character of this quiet residential area and harmful to neighboring amenities, in conflict with policy CP24 of the Tamil Morning Core Strategy and policy SQ1 of the Managing Development and the Environment Development Plan document. The second reason is, as a result of the insufficient off-street parking, the proposal would not function well over the lifetime of the development, and the parking plan would not be enforceable or provide sufficient mitigation for the failure to provide the necessary off-street parking spaces. This would amount to poor design and would be detrimental to the functioning of the development, in conflicts with paragraph 135 of the National Planning Policy Framework, policy CP24 of the Tamil Morning Core Strategy, policy SQ8 of the Managing Development and the Environment Development Plan document, and the Kent Parking Standards SPD. So now, when I call your name, please can you indicate whether you are for, against, or abstain this proposal to refuse? Councillor Thornwell,
Against.
Councillor Bell,
Or
Councillor Benderson,
Against.
Councillor Bishop,
Against.
Councillor Cannon,
For.
Councillor Dalton,
For.
Councillor Davies,
For.
Councillor Hammond,
For.
Councillor Hickmore,
Against.
Councillor Kies,
For.
Councillor McDermott,
For.
Councillor Oakley,
Against.
Councillor Williams.
For.
We have 8 members voted in favour, 5 members voted against, so the vote is carried.
and it will go to the next council meeting, I assume. Full council for them to decide. And of course, that meeting's open to the press and public, and you can come along and listen.
Just be worth letting members know, obviously, next full council meeting is budget. So this wouldn't appear at the next full council meeting because that is reserved for budget. And the one after that is, I'm led to believe, is the 21st of April, because that's the next available full council meeting that's on the agenda at the current time. So unfortunately, there is a time delay. I just wanted to let members know that, you know, there are other matters that full council have to deal with on this. So just there is a bit of a wait on this one to come back. Thank you.
If what,
Can I ask a question?
depends what it is.
Well, because of the long time lapse, are the applicants entitled to put in for a lawful development certificate now?
They're entitled to do what they wish. Anyone can submit a planning application. They can decide what they wish to do. They're also entitled to appeal the decision. Because in terms of if you're outside the statutory timeframe, but they will have to make a decision on in terms of how they wish to proceed.